So I'm going to call to order the meeting, and we need to establish the agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to establish the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Okay. So the agenda's been established. We need to vote on that. Okay, so we have our new student rep, Brody Newcomer, who is not voting tonight because he's being sworn in at the next meeting. But he's just here listening and learning. So student. Aye. And board members.
Aye.
Okay, 1040. And then we have 2, which is partial governance process monitoring. And this is board policy 1800 OE09, communication and support to the board, strategies 360, discussion of post-bond community survey.
Great, I'd like to bring our 2 partners up from Strategies 360 who are here with us this evening. They're here to provide, as I mentioned to you as a board last time, an overview of the work that they've been doing. Phase 1 and Phase 2 I discussed last time. Phase 1 being what they've worked on, which doesn't require interface with the community, and then talking about Phase 2, which gets into the survey aspect of the work, all trying to help us to not only answer where might you as a board or we as a community might go next with facilities, but in general, what's on the mind of our eligible voters, not necessarily the people who voted. So I'll turn it over to David.
And I'll just briefly introduce both of us. My name is David Cornarens. I am the Senior Vice President of Market Research, really meaning Public Opinion Research at Strategies 360. And I'm joined by Rachel, who would introduce herself and kick us off.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm Rachel Nakanishi. I'm the Vice President of Education at Strategies 360. My team specializes in supporting school districts and education organizations in research-based communication strategies. We have done over 50 polls for public education in Washington State. I just wanted to make a point of clarification. School districts, per the PDC, are prohibited from targeting just voters in research. So all of our research is of the broad population of all adult residents in the community. We would never do anything to put the district at risk of a PDC violation. So our research is really focused on the whole community at large and giving you a path forward to throughout the rest of the school year. So not necessarily a look at a certain point in time in the past, but really a strategy to be successful for the rest of the school year and moving forward for communications and engagement with your community.
You want to go through the other PDC can and cannot?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with publicly funded research, and some of the other rules are we can't ask how someone has or would vote, or whether they have or would vote. We can't ask support or opposition. You can ask some questions about support of a potential dollar amount, but we really focus our research on understanding priorities and perceptions. So the themes that David will talk about sort of fall into these buckets, and through the battery of questions, you'll get a sense of some of the weaknesses and opportunities, but we'll also sort of test some of the information and projects that were on that April funding measure in a way that will give you an actionable plan to move forward.
Okay, so to give a broad overview of the 2 phases of research, one of which has been completed as a draft form, the other of which the representative survey has not begun, interviews have not happened, so I'm going to speak at a high level because we don't want to prejudice anything. The demographic analysis I know has already been discussed in this board, and our findings broadly were that residents did not change their behavior in terms of their opportunities to vote, and so that question of did something change in the population of their activity, whether or not they take the opportunity to vote, that was effectively disproven. And so now we go to the second phase that I mentioned, where we are soliciting the opinions using multiple forms of interview methods of all residents, adults age 18 plus in the community, to ask about their preferences and priorities for school funding and get to the why. That piece is going to be finished by the end of September, but I can go over very broadly what the sections of questions are, or kind of broad buckets of questions are. The first section would be perceptions towards the school district performance, both generally and in specific areas. That is basically a satisfied to dissatisfied spectrum of answer options. The second section, and this is all sequential in terms of how the average resident who is going through and completing the survey would experience it. The second section is a perceived need or not for additional funding for the school district and property tax sensitivity. The third section broadly would elicit residents' preferences and priorities over prospective components of funding measures. Again, with that focus of allowing us to provide actionable recommendations for future funding measures. And then fourth, thematic frames for how residents prefer that funding is discussed or publicly communicated. A section that asks about their media consumption in terms of what channels or what modes they look for information about the school district and what their preferences are. And then lastly, a few demographic questions, really to kind of go back to the top, that ensure that this is a representative, statistically sound survey of the views of residents. And when I say representative, that is per the US Census American Communities data set.
David, can you talk a little bit more about your, the way you were able to come to the phase one conclusion that there wasn't some shift in the voters? I think just for context a little bit, you had gone back several different elections, and just kind of your process on that, I think would be helpful contextually.
So for the first phase of the demographic analysis, we had two basically inputs, publicly available data of residents in the community broken down to a precinct level. And then also that data mapped into graphical interface software, or GIS, so that we could examine over a period of 10 plus years how the residents chose to participate or not participate in the outcome of elections. Our broad findings were that Mercer Island, which is probably not a surprise to almost everybody in this room, on average has a population that is older, more well-educated, and wealthier than King County and also Washington State. The actual choice of residents whether or not to participate in elections is at a rate also higher than King County's average and Washington State's average. However, that being said, the actual residents who chose to participate in the 10 years of elections that we looked at did not change drastically. There was no large shift that would explain the outcome of what we've seen recently.
Questions from the board?
And are you comparing this this picture of Mercer Island or the data that you're gathering, sort of like how it compares to other school districts or other like sized communities or whatever? Or will we be seeing that, or is that something? Are you just more like analyzing our microcosm?
More analyzing the district itself over a period of 10 plus years, but like I said, we did also use King County and Washington State as a reference point. I think maybe you, having more experience with other school districts, may be able to add some more illumination, but the priority is definitely the residents of Mercer Island itself.
Yeah, I think it's, the goal is really to help you understand what your community prioritizes in their perception of the school district.
Yeah, 2 questions. 1, how will the survey be disseminated? And 2, who will see the questions on the survey before they're disseminated? Will members of the administration, will the board, how questions are asked make a big difference in terms of how issues are framed?
Yeah, before I answer, do you want to go over our experience in King County and Washington State for survey research?
Yeah, so our firm specializes in helping school districts with bond and levy informational campaigns. And so over the past decade, we've, I think, really honed in on a structure of the survey that really creates actionable communications for the district and areas for improvement. So I think sort of the structure and the types of questions we believe the insight will help the district move forward. And we typically work with the superintendent and their leadership team to develop and finalize the questionnaire.
So the administration would see the questions, but I guess those are not typically shared with the board.
We would defer to the superintendent on their preferences. This is all still in motion. Nothing has been finalized. But like I said, from a very high level, this research is effectively half done with the first phase completed in a draft format, and the second phase not yet even disseminated or transmitted. To answer that question, we practice what's commonly viewed as a gold standard for survey research, which is multiple different methods of interviewing, effectively meeting residents where and how they prefer. So that would mean live interviewers calling cell phones, live interviewers calling landlines, and then also texted out invitations to take the survey in a web hosted, whether on one's mobile device or computer. So at least those 3 different methods to a randomized sample of residents in the community. And we anticipate, based on the numbers of the population and the data we have available, it can take upwards of 10 days of interviewing. So there is a good amount of time that residents would have an opportunity over, as I said, multiple methods to interview and complete the survey.
And in our meeting ahead of this one, I had asked the same question around what is the typical board involvement. They had shared what they shared with you tonight, that it's atypical that they go with the board, but I did prep them with that they might get that question tonight.
So even though the board is ultimately the one who puts the proposal to the community, we're not the ones who would review the questions
Right,
and
Dan.
determining how the community responded to the.
Or if I may,
Typically.
the board role is to set policy and direct the superintendent to implement their vision or what they want to know. The superintendent is implementing this vision by hiring experts in their field to execute that, what the board has asked them to implement. So I think it's entirely appropriate. And for this to stay at the administrative level, we are not survey professionals here on the board that I know of. So I think that it's probably, I'm completely satisfied having handed this broad decision to the superintendent to implement, to have him implement it the way he sees fit by hiring a professional to do so. This isn't something that we need to, I don't see what would be benefited from having lay people look at the questions before they come out. But that is how the board works. We tell the superintendent to do something and he does it, getting the people who know best how to do it. And that's how he does his job. Christina?
I was just going to say, from a research perspective, somebody that has done, I will be cautious in being over involved. That's why we need a third party, in that we will have the right question maybe for the community and have an independent study, not to over guide what the district or not is. We need an independent point of view. So I will say we have to be very cautious how we move here to also maintain the trust of the community that this is not something that we are just guiding. We're sharing some of the questions, but at the same time, it is part of the research process, not necessarily that everybody has to be involved on drafting the questions.
I mean, to give a concrete example, for instance, a lot of questions in the community centered around how the most recent failed bond proposal, how it fit into the long-range plan. Was this one bond of 4? Was it one in of itself? What was the cadence? So for instance, in my view, that is an important piece of information for the board to digest, is to understand if it was the merits of the bond of itself, or if it was a perception that there wasn't a built-out long-term plan. And I understand that we're not experts, but I mean, neither is the administration when it comes to survey. And, I guess those are the individuals that typically work with you guys to craft the questions, which I find a little bit confounding.
Is there a question in there for the?
Well, yeah, to give an example of why I think it's important for the board, who is ultimately voting a future board on a bond proposal, to understand the questions that are being put to the community before they're put to the community.
I'm going to conjecture that this rather well-known piece of information that the community was looking for is something that you're aware of, and something that your inquiries will reflect. And I feel certain that if it is not, I feel certain that Superintendent Rundle is aware of them and can help guide your attention to that matter. I don't think it's necessary for the board to be involved in the minutia of this.
I will let that.
Deborah?
Well, I was just going to mention that if there are concerns or things that the board needs to know, I think that we can pass over comments to the superintendent, and then it can be shared through the survey and see if that is something that it is aligned with what you do or not, and with the questions that will be, some of the concerns could be addressed or not, but I think that it should remain as independent as possible to give a very big result on what we're looking for, that it is to see why the community voted the way that it did. So I think that we can share our concerns, but at the same time, we have to remain independent.
Deborah?
Thanks. I'm a little bit confused why this is so acrimonious and adversarial. Is it not to you, but that you're being talked to that way? I'm sorry. Is this, number one, what is the timeline in terms of when the community will be reached out to? And also, what is the purpose? What is the vision? Why are we using an independent? Why does one use an independent company to try and collect this information? Typically, I'm just looking to get more information from people who do this for a living.
Yeah, I'll answer all the questions except for the purpose and then let you speak on that, so you know what I'm more articulate than I am. The timeline, as of right now, as I said, this is still in the drafting phase, but the timeline is that the interviews will be conducted in the latter half of September, over a period of roughly 7 to 10 days. And would result in, I believe, 400 interviews that are representative of residents district-wide, again, per the US Census data. The reason why public opinion research companies are selected is because not only is there social science that I've been describing, it is in fact actually a lot of the job is project management of companies that we work with who have enriched data files that we use, so that we are working with the best resources possible to reach out to and contact and give residents the best opportunity to engage and complete the survey. And then there are completely separate different subcontractors that I manage who are doing, as I said, the actual interviewing with both humans and transmitting out over text invitations to residents to take the survey. So all of that is a lot of logistical and timeline management, in addition to the social science side of being able to give both strategic recommendations and recommendations for future public communication, but be able to discern between what is statistically significant in terms of a difference, or what may fall within the margin of error and could possibly just be statistical noise.
Will you know the identities of the people who were interviewed?
It's not something that we look at on an individual level or share out. Everything is basically any group or area would need to at least, at a minimum, be 10% of the sample of completed surveys to be viewed. So everything's viewed effectively in the aggregate.
I think that an area that we really help is we're coming in fresh, right? You guys have been talking about this bond and the funding measure for years. You hear from, staff and families, you have established connections to people that are connected to the district. We, through our research, can help illuminate any blind spots or places that you're not thinking of or haven't heard of. So we're reaching out to different segments of the community who maybe aren't the ones that are commenting on Facebook or coming to the board meetings or the parents, and helping you think about, perhaps it's the messaging that you talked, the way that you talked about the projects, or the priority of the projects, or the type of information that you did or did not share. So again, it's really to inform communications about either a potential future funding measure or just building trust and goodwill throughout the rest of the school year.
Anyone else on the board have any other questions for the speaker students?
No, I think so. I think this is really great, though. I think definitely what you were saying about relieving any blind spots at the Late Registry, we hear a lot coming from the community, so I think it's really great that we're looking in a more unbiased way at people who might not hear about. I think that's awesome.
Do you have anything else to share with us? Or?
No, not at this time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in and for keeping us updated.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okey-dokey. Moving right along. We got 2B, which is Board Policy 1800 OE6, Budgeting, Financial Planning, Update on the 2024-2025 Financial Dashboard, and July 2025 Budget Status Report.
Great, so our team, just like they've done in the past, they're gonna kind of give us a look up through July on the dashboard, and then you'll get the August really once we come back at the end of October when we do the year end. But this gives us an idea kind of where we were or where what we looked at the end of July as we head in and prepare for the next school year. So I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Sullivan.
Great, thank you. Obviously, we're through July, or 91.6% of the fiscal school year. Expenditures are at 91.4%, so we are right on track in regard to that measure of month-over-month budget expenditures, et cetera. Revenues are about 87.9%. Of course, this is going to be slightly lower because, as you all know, ad nauseum, I've spoken of when taxes come in October and April, and they tail off a little bit. So we see that 87.9%. Plus, we receive a large chunk of our apportionment in July, 12.5% from the state, and then we also receive about 10% in August. We get that. So that's why it doesn't quite track just like the expenditures do per budget. Some of the highlights, if you will, on the expenditure side, we see an increase in the federal side due to national board certification stipends being paid out for about 37 teachers. That's about $6,200 per piece, if I recall correctly. And then other instructional increase is due to a 6-month payment to OCA for our team's use of the pool. And then we see an increase in support and community services due to Chartwell's food service. They'd like to do a payment kind of year end, so we get that hit in June with May and June, so they can kind of wrap up their year. On the revenue side, we see a decrease in the EP&O levy. Once again, collected received in April, and we received some in May. And that's where we see that little bit of drop off. State apportionment increase, once again, due to apportionment payment of 12.5% in July, and of course, we'll receive 10% in August. And then the other is we see an increase slightly due to the transfer of CapTech revenue to the general fund. And then lastly, to kind of wrap up, our monthly fund balance, cash on hand, we were still in the positive. We had a fund balance of about $22,000 at the end of the month, but it's a positive year over year, if you notice, in regard to the dashboard. Thank you, Director Hendricks, Alonso. We see the chart right there that shows year over year about $1.4 million difference, which is a good sign, a positive indicator for the growth of our fund balance. And we still estimate year-end fund balance of roughly about 3.6 million, or about 4.5% when it's all said and done. As it stands right now, we're just starting to close the year and reconciling 24-25. we have about 6 or 7 weeks out before we'll know where we stand. That's going to be about mid-October. And as Superintendent Rundle mentioned, we'll be presenting that to you at the end of October.
How does the transfer, I saw that in the notes on the revenue side, there's an increase in the transfer of cap tech to the general fund. How does it compare to last year, and what's the reason for a difference, to the extent there is a difference?
I don't know off the top of my head what the difference is year over year. I have the dashboard previously from the previous year in front of me. It looks roughly about the same, but we try to be lenient with that transfer this time of the year. So because we have that apportionment coming in, we have safety net coming in, and so we want to hold back on that and see how it balances out come October.
And just a reminder for the next year. So I remember the state changed how they're gonna put the allocations every month. Instead of 2 times a year, so it's going to be like, can you remind me, please?
In regard to the special ed,
The allocation that the state will, instead of giving those chunks every 6 months or every so often, the state was going to change that. Can you?
no, there's no apportionment change for next year regarding percentage month to month to month, but there is a change per legislative session in regard to how they're going to pay
Yes, yeah.
safety net allocation. It's going to
This
be
is-
quarterly, if I'm
Quarterly.
Okay.
not just one time a year we receive in
Okay,
August.
yes, just wanted to have that as a reminder. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bridget.
I was just gonna, thank you for this information. When I did that, it was nice to see, great news and, positive trends. I'm wondering, in all, I'm not really sure how to ask this. The capital fund loan repayment box that we asked back in 2022, 23 to be on there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, not trying to hide anything. It's just in the past, and I'm not sure that needs to be pointed out. It was, we took the loan, we paid it back. We have a fund balance, and I don't know if it served the purpose continuing to have that on there. It seems to me that it would be putting more weight than something that was very important in our past history, but it's no longer really relevant.
Fair enough. My goal is to keep it on until the end of the year.
Oh.
This year, and then it'll be gone starting in September, October,
Seems like the right amount of time.
unless there's a different thing from the board.
Can you talk a little bit more about the fund balance? It sounds like it's going in the right direction that we asked you to take it in at a nice steady clip. That's an economics term. Can you talk a little bit more about how that's going and where you see it? I know the last school year, I don't know which meeting it was, but we talked about sort of like easing up the pressure a little bit on that if necessary to maintain services to our students. And it sounds like you're striking a good balance there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That was the June 16th meeting. The question
Okay,
of the
Matt.
board was looking at year over year what our estimate versus actual was. I think we presented that document at that meeting. This is still an estimate, and like I said, the business services team, Director Adams, Assistant Director of our CFO are working on reconciling the year. We have about 6 to 7 weeks before we really truly know where we stand. But speaking with them on our Tuesday meeting, we believe we're still going to hit that 4.5%. So that's what we know at this point.
And that is looking at expenses for the previous year rather than going forward, to some of my earlier questions. And do we know typically how other school districts calculate that? I know in the business world, the point of a reserve is for expenses going forward, not for expenses that were incurred in the past. And because of inflation, expenses go up. So by looking in the past, it gives the appearance of a higher percentage than sort of the actuality. So I guess that, to me, an interesting thing would be like, what's the percentage when you calculate it on the go-forward basis, which is the more important of the two. And then two, I guess my suggestion is, I agree that we no longer need a capital fund loan repayment. I think what would be more useful is the transfers from Cap Tech to the general fund to date and how that compares to historical.
to answer your question initially, this is the standard that we use. All of the districts use that also, numerator, denominator. It's also what Moody's evaluates us on, that standard also of our fund balance and how we calculate that. It's also what the auditors look at, so that is what we use. That's why OSPI recommends too. We can always do something different if that's you as a board recommend that and direct us to do that, but that is the industry standard.
As for the other requests from Director Glotz, are there other people interested in having that information listed in our regular updates?
I think I would need to think about all the information to get my opinion. And study, go back a little bit on this whether or not, so, not at this moment.
Thanks.
Alright,
Thank you. You're in charge, baby.
Good level. Thanks, everyone. Next, that's not an action item, so the next item we have up is annual agenda planning for policy 1008. This is the planning calendar for 2025-2026.
I think everything is set on here, except I want to note one emergent challenge, and appreciate Director Martinez, who had pointed this out, and some of you may have seen it as well. The high school had originally had their curriculum night on 9/24, but that would have bumped right up against sundown being the end of Rosh Hashanah, and then curriculum night starting. And so they felt that they wanted to move that, and they looked at the calendar and they moved it to 9/25, but that's also a board meeting night. And many of you, including me, have kids at the high school now. So in looking at that, we have a couple of options there. We can look at trying to find another night, or we can take the agenda items that would appear on that night, move some up a meeting and have those on 9/11, and then move other items to 10/9. I did some looking at the agenda, and there's not something that is a timeline that we have to hit. So if you wanted to not have that meeting, we can move agenda items as well. But everything else, I think, is in pretty good shape based on the different calendars that you've shared with us, and the conversations you've had.
I would appreciate that as a, I'm sorry. I would appreciate that as a high school parent on the board. And I think that it's probably, if there's nothing, if those meetings do not look overly blatant on their agendas, I think that would be a great solution to the issue.
That seems totally reasonable. That seems totally reasonable.
I'm happy to move it or adjust, but of course, I mean, that goes without saying.
You're not going to curriculum night?
I'm not going to curriculum night. But I always did.
But I think dividing, if the meeting, the second meeting is late enough to divide it into those other two meetings. Christine?
For me, it sounds fantastic. I think that I love curriculum, and it's one of my favorite ones. So.
No.
Dan?
So,
Okay.
however, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, however it's named.
Yeah.
So this does take action, so it sounds like a friendly amendment to 9/25, just taking that off of the agenda. We will move the items around, but it is an action item.
I move to remove the September 25th meeting from the agenda and move the items of the agenda to the two meetings nearby.
Second.
All in favor of doing that? Please say aye.
Only one student.
Oh, sorry, one votable student. Aye. And board members?
Aye.
All opposed? So that passes by a vote of 1-0, 5-0.
Now you just need to approve the whole thing altogether,
Okay,
because you only approved the.
okay, can I get a motion to approve the whole thing as amended?
Motion to approve the draft calendar as amended, or agenda, annual agenda planning calendar for 2024-2025 as amended.
Second.
All in favor of approving the amended draft calendar, please say aye. Student? Aye.
Board members?
Aye.
Any opposed? 1050.
Great.
Thank you all. Okay, next item is board policy 1430, public attendance and comment at board meetings, revisions to public input script. And this is not an action item, this is for discussion, we just need kind of consensus on this. So I did make take a stab at streamlining the script, which is pretty laborious to read as it currently is. I'm assuming everyone has had a chance to look over it. If you'd like, I can read it.
Or get your practice in.
Anybody want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, school board meetings are business meetings of the board held in public. Public comment is an opportunity for community members to provide input on the work of the board and the district. It is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. The board directors do not respond directly to public comment. However, the board's silence should not be taken as agreement or disagreement with the speaker's remarks. The board may later direct the superintendent to respond to issues raised during public comment. Public comments must adhere to the same level of civility that the board expects of itself as specified in board policies. Speakers may not use threatening or profane language in comments and may not direct individual attacks against staff, students, administrators, or board members. Please note that comments have the potential to violate the rights of others under laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. Comments that name a district student are not permitted without permission of that student's guardian. The board president will cut off speakers who violate any of these rules, their speaking time will be ended. Speakers should state their full name for the record at the start of their comment and their relationship to the district, if any. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to comment. If you wish to make a comment in person tonight and have not yet completed a public input form, blank forms are available at the entrance to the boardroom. Please complete the form and hand it to Michelle Miller. The cutoff to register for online public comment is 1 hour before the start of the meeting. Can that count for tonight? Any feedback, things people would like me to add back in? It's definitely a lot easier to read. That's like half as much fun, maybe like a third less reading. I think it has the main books.
I think it's fine, it's not missing anything.
Any alternative things? No? Okay, I think you can call that a consensus.
Great. Keep it handy.
If nobody else comes in, I'm gonna assume that everyone has heard it. Okay. Next up, we have recognition and public input.
Great. We're a little ahead of schedule. Do you want to go to full governance processing and
Yeah,
we'll come
sure.
back to those at 6?
That's fine.
Great.
So full governance process monitoring, we have board policy 1008, annual agenda planning. This is our,
So this is your chance to take a look at 1008 as it sits, not the actual calendar itself, but all of the process and language for that to do a review.
I think I'm just gonna say, I think we are in compliance in everything. When we did make a mistake about an item being removed from the consent agenda on the request of an individual board member, it got corrected the same evening, so we've all had a little reminder of that. Anyone else have thoughts?
I move we find ourselves in compliance.
Second.
All in favor of finding the board in compliance with board policy 1008, annual agenda planning, please say aye, student. Aye. Board members? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 1050. Thank you all. And then next, we have board policy 1800 OE1, fundamental 3, social and emotional learning. That's a big one. We want to just start it and then stop for public input and then pick up again.
Absolutely. Come on up.
Yeah.
Consistent with what we worked on last time as a board, we presented fundamentals 1 and 5 and the report that goes with those. And so now we're providing all of the new kind of the quantitative data for both fundamental 3 and 4. We'll start with fundamental 3.
So fundamental 3 is a bit shorter, just focusing on that EES piece of things. So the start of the presentation, as Andrews gets that up, is just a review of, on the next slide. Thank you. Sample size. So we had a significant decline in 24-25 for the EES as far as, or excuse me, that should be not the EES, that should be the Civic Minded Graduate Survey. So Civic Minded Graduate, we had about half of the volume, or just under half of the volume that we had last year, so that changed significantly. And then that second piece is just a reminder of the scale. So 1 and 2 are disagree, 3 and 4 are neutral, and then 5 and 6 are agree. So starting just with the EES and the social emotional data. So these are just sort of captions of sorts to represent the ideas that are shown in the questions that are in the actual survey. So kind of topics of them. So we saw some growth in several areas here. So hope about the future. We saw an increase of 3%, emotional awareness 4%, and self-regulation 4%, empathy just 1%, peer respect 6%, group belonging 5%, and problem solving 7%. So we had some solid increases there in terms of the social emotional growth pieces. That's kind of the capture of 3.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that was it, fundamental 3, or you're doing the two?
Yeah, the other one is after it. So I've encapsulated at the very end a slide that talks about the growth areas.
Since there was such a difference in the response level from one year to the next, was there a difference in the way that it was administered or offered?
From the Civic Minded Graduate, Fred, do you know if there was a difference in how the administration happened? I don't think so.
They included it, or it was intended to be included as part of the sign-out process. So when they bring everyone to the Performing Arts Center and they go over caps and gowns and all of those components, there was an aspect of your checkout that you had to complete it as part of that. So it was embedded more into, they tried to embed it more into the natural progression of the end of the school year rather than Islander Hour or something else.
And checkout, it wasn't success, that wasn't a requirement that they do it?
I think there was, but it's hard to make it. I think the hard part is it's not.
Like they could click one thing and then.
Right, because it's anonymous.
Right.
So it's not like, it's hard to know.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So in the actual fundamental documents in board docs there, you can see all of the data points for the questions, but then beyond that, you can see some of the areas of strength and areas where we need some growth.
So, and I have a few questions and some comments, but so especially in the ones that are in the lower percentage, but all of them, how are they divided by schools? And especially the one that is like the 53%, but is that more prominent in one particular school, in elementary, middle schools, or high schools, or do you have the data on that?
On the particular questions, I don't know that I've looked at that specific question to answer that question, but we can look at that
I
data.
would love to
in our
see that,
dashboard.
because I think that it will be very interesting to see
Yeah.
if that's particular to a
Grade levels.
middle school or high school, because then we have a way to actually have some action items in
Yeah.
some places.
I will say the principals look at that to make determinations about their school improvement goals.
Yes, but at the same time as a system,
Yeah.
if you see that it's in the middle school, we might have to start working fourth and fifth grade, or the other way, if it's in the high school, how is it tied together as a district? So I would love to see you look into that and see how it's reflected. And this is particularly the most students are respectful of others at this school. And I will also comment that that was an eye-opening also for me, because I think it is also a reflection of our community and how we behave in the board. So that being said, it made me check very clear that while I'm in the board, I'm going to be the example to the students, so they know that they can be and should be respectful to others, and the same for the community. The way that we behave around each other and treat each other, regardless if we disagree or not with the opinions, it does reflect in our students too. So that is something that it is here. The other question was regarding the setbacks of the students. That is also a lower percentage of that they setbacks don't discourage me. Also would be interesting to see if there's by school and also by maybe demographics to see if there's something there that we can intervene. And those were the eye openings that I had with this data that you provided.
I think it's also kind of just going back just quickly to that on, we had shared with you last time that some of our schools have also done some work around making some kid-friendly examples of these questions for our kindergarten through third grade students in particular who are absent from this data altogether. And so as we're going to the schools or as we're having conversations, we've been taking notes from the last 2 meetings so that when we come to do school visits or whatnot, you can kind of see what they're doing and some of the data that they're honing in on. What's that?
This is a
Oh.
class on this, and then the next fundamental that I'm gonna keep you homework, that for next year, if we can see your interpretations. of
Yes.
the fundamentals.
Yes.
So, thank you.
I'd be very curious to know how these concepts would translate to a kindergarten level, especially for like a non-reading kindergartner. It's like, I'm comfortable interacting with people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, like, that's challenging to put them into kindergarten terms.
Yeah. We talked about this before, and I acknowledge that you have no control over this, but the ES survey there's that issue where it's like, there's no like non-clickable button doesn't push. So like, if you're, feeling, I don't know, like if a question doesn't apply to you at all, you might say, 1, no, but they don't know if that means like, no, I'm having a terrible day, or no, like, not applicable.
Yeah.
And I know there's no way around it, and nothing you can do, but is there a way around it, anything we can do?
I mean, I would assume that people would generally pick neutral for that one,
Right.
like kind of middle ground in it would be my assumption. But yeah, there is no NA on there. I don't imagine them changing that for us.
Yeah. Is there like a further instruction we can give people, to make sure to, and I'm only thinking of like, my time on the middle school PAC, or I think I happened to sit in for Deborah on the middle school PAC one time, and the discussion was around the parent result of the ES survey, and I think even like the 12 people in the room were like, oh wow, we totally misinterpreted this wrong, because we would answer 1 instead of like 3 when it was not applicable. So I'm just wondering if there's something that we can do on our end to sort of mitigate the confusion on the state issue end.
Yeah, on the statements. It would be, I think, a little tricky to do it question by question, because I'm certain that there's probably some misunderstanding or even misreading of questions at times. But in terms of providing staff members some guidance around what to say, we could totally do that.
I was just gonna push back a little bit on sort of the respectful and perhaps what, it's not over-index for behavior that we might model or might not model on the board. There's obviously a precipitous decline after COVID, but it's actually an all-time high last year since COVID. At least my experience when I was a student, I had little awareness of what was going on at a board level, and I would say like probably the vast majority of students occupy a similar mindset. So I would just hesitate to extrapolate too large from certain ideas that are propagated that don't actually seem to be reflected in the data.
I would just say on that, I think it would be interesting to see based off of schools, like, because high schoolers will be aware of what's going on in their community, especially when we have bigger issues going on, like we do like now, like bonds and things like that. Obviously, elementary, middle school, they don't know what's going on most of the time. So that would be one where it would be really interesting to see differences in schools and grade levels.
Kristen, again, and then Deborah. I just want to make clear that I was not saying that my behavior will impact one kindergarten or not. I am saying that this made me aware to ensure that when I'm here with you, I will respect each other and the different things, because this is also a checkout. And the way that I interact with all of you in the community that are here or are looking at us online, that it matters. So that was kind of a comment on my reflection on how I was going to behave. So that was it.
We have Deborah and then.
I actually thank you for saying that. I think, I've been thinking a lot about that in the last couple of weeks, in terms of respect and gratitude and things that people do for each other, for the community as a whole, and for the people that they're close to. I have been very troubled by a lot of the tones and not the viewpoints. Different viewpoints are good. They make us better to have discussion about them and get to a better place. But the way that people talk to each other and the manner in which they talk to each other, our kids are watching us, and maybe not in this boardroom, but they're watching us in the computer, or in the computer. They're watching us in the community. They're watching how we behave on the computer. They're listening to our conversations in the car. And I think that, whether or not we want higher scores, I think it's gonna make us better. I've seen people commenting about, these broad generalizations where, so-and-so should have done this when they've never talked to that person ever in their life. And then people read it, and because it's in print, it's always believed as true. So I'm kind of talking a lot about lots of different things, but I think it ultimately comes down to respect for people who dedicate their lives to serving our children, people who respect for choosing a community to live in regardless of your viewpoints, and wanting that same respect back that you then need to give. And I think that it starts at the top, and I would love to see some type of initiative from the top down in terms of respect and gratitude and treating our community, like treating each other within our community a whole lot better than we have been.
Lucy?
Yeah, I just want to say to agree, I think I've seen in this role, like, kids a lot of times are really a reflection of their parents. As I meet more kids' parents, I see, a lot of similarities between them. So I think it is really important to remember, like, your kids are watching you, your parents watch other people, we're all reflections of each other. So it's good to just be respectful to everyone in general.
Perfect.
I'll let this conversation go because I have kind of just a clarifying piece, so if someone else may want to.
No, I just wanted to try and get some clarity from other members of the board as to whether people are interested in seeing more of a breakdown next year between levels of school. Like, I'm interested in that. I think it would tell us more than just the overall. Like, if you take 4th through 12th grade, there's so much that goes on there in terms of how kids socialize and how they kind of use resources and experience their day at school. And puberty, there's all of that. There's a lot going on.
Change.
Yeah, I'm getting like a lot of headlines, so that seems to be a general interest of the board.
One of I think something that's important to note about all of this is historically, we've always only reported the almost always true and the often truths. The scale is almost always true, often true, sometimes true, seldom true, almost never true. This particular question, just looking at it here, most students are respectful of others at this school. It has one of the highest sometimes truths at 30%. So it's only 19, or it's 12, 15%, 16% that are almost never true and seldom true. And then it's sometimes true to almost always true. And so it can be a little misleading to think that it's never happening. And so that could be something else that you want to look at as a board, as to how you want to look at that data, because there's no true neutral. So
I think that's actually, I like the being able to see all of it in terms of, because what I tend to look at in terms of survey data is, the positive responses and the negative responses, and the intricacies. We each have our own kind of scale of where we are comfortable checking. And so to me, that actually says most of it is what would be helpful to me is to see a breakdown of positive responses, and basically from neutral to the right, and then the negative, the neutral to the left, and not seeing like always or sometimes. I mean, that's a nuance that I am less concerned about personally, but I'm not doing this again, so.
I want to see it broken
got
down.
notes, you have notes.
Yep. Kind of broken down astrological sign. But
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're limited by like the fact that this is a test that comes to us that has been presumably validated and everything as it is. So we can choose how to break out the results and, do what.
We can do lots of
Look at them
things.
lots of different ways, but we can't really change them.
No, I'm not saying,
No.
I'm saying in terms of the recording,
I
like
know.
do like a slash negative,
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably, I would imagine, want positive, neutral, and negative, because that neutral is what they refer to as our area of opportunity. So all right, we can put together some things for you to look at and make some determinations.
And, you know, if we're asking you to do more, like to break it down by level or whatever, and let's just check in and you can maybe remind us, like next year, when we look at this, like, was that useful? So that you're not doing something that didn't, you know, if we're asking you to do a new task and you're not, and you're doing it, then we can also be like, well, actually, we did need to do that task or whatever.
Maybe a 5-minute recess, and then when we come out of it, we'll be right at announcements and public input.
Do we need to vote on?
Do we need to vote
Oh,
on
yes,
this
we
stuff?
do.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we find the superintendent in compliance of board policy 1800 OE1 fundamental 3.
All in favor of finding the board in compliance?
Superintendent.
Sorry, finding the superintendent in compliance, please say aye. Student? Aye. Board members?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes by 5-0. So yes, we will take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Guess how many things there are to do in the job?
See your nephew, and that's it.
No problem. Okay, we are back and ready to start with, what do we call it, recognitions.
While I start in recognition, please look for Sabine Friedman in promoter, if she's in there. Couple recognitions this month, and then when we get rolling here at the start of the year, we have a lot of catch up to do from the spring. So we'll be seeing a lot of students coming up from the spring and the successes of our students. But a couple of recognitions tonight. We're coming up on Suicide Prevention Month here in September. Important time to continue to raise awareness, and our partners through YFS have done an excellent job with this. I do want to shout out Michelle Ritter and the work that she's done with organizing community campaigns and conversations. It's a difficult topic, but it's one we can't talk about enough to be able to raise awareness and have those conversations. So our partners with the University of Washington Forefront, we've always been a kind of a lead district there, and that was largely because of Harry Brown, YFS counselor down at the middle school, who retired. But Chris Harnish and others are going to carry that forward. The next one is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and for confidentiality reasons, obviously we can't mention names, but we have students in our district who are fighting cancer in various forms, and things we can do. I know there's been different schools that have done the wearing or displaying gold, representing childhood cancer awareness, supporting local initiatives, educating ourselves about the signs and symptoms, and certainly advocating for increased funding wherever we can. And I'd be remiss not to also remember that we've lost students not too long ago and in years past to cancer, and we continue to support those families and support the causes that they put forward as well. And lastly, Monday is a holiday, Labor Day. It's deep roots back into the 19th century, but an opportunity to call attention to the great accomplishments of all the workers that have come before us in this country and who will come after, and the hard work that happens around this district each and every day. It's also the unofficial end of summer, but we'll see, maybe we'll get a little late summer this year. With that, I want to bring in Sabine Friedman. Sabine is a French teacher at Mercer Island High School. But last year, we were approached by a number of families from the French American School who came to us and said, we're going to be making in terms of our kids matriculating up and getting ready to kind of leave elementary, and we're ready to maybe consider IMS. And others who are saying, we're looking at potentially not wanting to make a move when the French American School moves to their new location in Seattle. And I know that's a couple years out. But Ian Henry, Aaron Miller, and some others started listening and engaging with those families. And one of the asks they had is, what could be provided for our students who are going to be coming in way ahead of the 7th and 8th grade offering at the middle school, but we want to maintain the language that they built while at the French American School. And Sabine stepped forward, Ms. Friedman stepped forward and said, I have space in my schedule and we might be able to offer some programming. And so starting this year, we have 10 students right now who have registered for a before school, kind of a 0-hour French class that they're going to be taking with Ms. Friedman several days a week to maintain some of those skills so that they can continue to matriculate through. So I want to turn it over to you, Ms. Friedman. First off, thank you, recognizing the effort that you've already put into this. Give us a little what you're working on.
Well, first, I'm very excited to meet my students. We'll start this coming Tuesday, right after Labor Day. I'm excited about, as a mom first, because I have struggled also to maintain the French level of my own daughter after she left the French American School. And so I'm happy to help these parents. Really, their request really touched me. And my colleague Dina Viot as well, the other French teacher at the Mercer Island High School. We feel like it is a challenge to maintain a high level, a bilingual level without any classes, any help at all. And all without being connected to other people our age. When you are young, it's important to have friends your age and use this language this way. So as a mom, it touched me, and then as a professional, because I've been working actually, I think for 9 years now at the Mercer Island High School. I know the program very well. I've taught almost all classes, I think French 1, French 2, French 4, and AP. And I know where we are taking our students towards. And my own daughter just passed the AP French last year at her own high school with a 5. And I know it's totally feasible. They can also take all sorts of other diplomas through the Alliance Française and the European Union if they wish to go on studying in Europe. So yeah, there are lots of possibilities for our students through a program at the high school, and I'm hoping that this little program at the middle school will help bridge, and I say that, act like a bridge between the French American school and the high school. Hopefully they will be able to join maybe even at a later grade than they usually do, at a later level. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really happy. I think it's a great idea, and I'm happy that we are of service to this community of very concerned parents.
Great. Well, thank you. We're looking forward to getting an update on how that goes. I also forgot Katie Gallagher, our assistant principal down at the middle school, has been tremendous in facilitating it. So thank you to everyone behind the scenes for making this happen. And just wanted to recognize that extra effort, and we appreciate that. Ms. Friedman.
Thank you, Fred, for all this time you've taken on this to do this. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabine.
And then lastly, just, a year ago, I wrote a message about a shooting in Georgia, and then yesterday, so our hearts continue to go out to all schools that are affected by violence, but particularly gun violence, and the impacts that it has. So we'll continue, as I said in the letter last night. I appreciate Tony Kuhn and Dreves and others who continue to seek solutions that people may not know about with Raptor Technologies, but we continue to seek new ways to make our schools safer and safer while not taking away from the magic of school. So hearts with them, but appreciation to everyone who keeps our schools safe. And those are my recognitions.
Thank you. Right now, I only have 3 people signed up for public input. So the first one is Todd White. Oh, sorry, I forgot to read the thing. And sit down again, Todd, sorry. I said before, since I read it as a part of the meeting, if no new people came in, I wouldn't read it, but several new people came in. So I will read it again. This is shorter than it usually is, everyone. School board meetings are business meetings of the board held in public. Public comment is an opportunity for community members to provide input on the work of the board and the district. It is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. Board directors do not respond directly to public comment. However, the board's silence should not be taken as agreement or disagreement with the speaker's remarks. The board may later direct the superintendent to respond to issues raised during public comment. Public comments must adhere to the same level of civility that the board expects of itself as specified in board policies. Speakers may not use threatening or profane language in comments and may not direct individual attacks against staff, students, administrators, or board members. Please note that comments have the potential to violate the rights of others under laws protecting privacy and prohibiting defamation. Comments that name a district student are not permitted without permission of that student's guardian. The board president will cut off speakers who violate any of these rules. Their speaking time will be ended. Speakers should state their full name for the record at the start of their comment and their relationship to the district, if any. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to comment. If you wish to make a comment in person tonight and have not yet completed a public input form, blank forms are available at the entrance to the boardroom. Please complete the form and hand it to Michelle Mueller. The cutoff to register for online public comment is 1 hour before the start of the meeting. Okay, thank you. Now,
Good evening, community members, Director Rumble and staff, and our students here at the board. My name is Todd White. Our family moved here about 10 years ago. We have 2 young children in the district, so that's why I'm here today. I'm also here to talk about this emergent and very important topic about safety of our students. as it relates to recent information that's come out about sexual assault, sexual abuse. And my background on this is I graduated from high school in 1981 in Columbus, Ohio. Our senior year, we won a lacrosse championship, much like what happens here on the island. And I was really excited because I had been accepted to attend the Ohio State University, play lacrosse, and study engineering. My future was bright. In the spring of '82, we started the lacrosse season. And the first requirement, like most athletic programs, is you have to submit to a physical exam. In this case, it was one team doctor who conducted all the exams for all the male athletes. And I'll just talk about why this is important on this topic. It's leadership, it's transparency, it's policy, it's culture, and courage. These will all come together with this topic, at least for me. And basically, what I'm doing tonight is I'm telling my story on the journey I've done. This Dr. Strauss, if you were to Google his name in Ohio State, you're gonna be overwhelmed with the number of responses that come back. And pretty quickly, you're gonna see this person was a sexual predator. And he preyed on hundreds and hundreds of student athletes, male athletes at the Ohio State University. Some high school kids who just want to play there, impromptu exams, just really, really bad stuff. This went on for over 10 years, and I'm one of his victims. The university knew about it, they didn't do anything to stop it. I don't know if they had a policy, certainly wasn't effective. There was no transparency about what was taking place. And the culture allowed this individual to prey on students on a routine basis for over 10 years. And the last element is courage, and I'll get to that in a second here. So fast forward, after 10 years, this individual left the university, killed himself before he was able to be held accountable for his behavior. And I've been on this journey about 45 years. This is the first time publicly I've disclosed that I'm a victim. And why am I here? Because I got young kids in the district that need to be protected. Other families I've talked to also concerned. They want some assurances that this is not happening today, it's not going to happen in the future. I'm deeply concerned about that. The other part of this is, statistically speaking, I'm likely not the only victim. There are probably other folks in this room who are victims or people who are watching. It's far too prevalent. If you're not a victim, that's a great thing. We probably know some of you. So it's a really important topic. And just to finish up, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. And I'm here to help. I'm not here to accuse, point fingers, but if there's something I can do to help us on this journey to ensure we have safety for our students, please let me know. And I happily collaborate in a very positive, constructive way. I've been on this journey for 45 years, so I've learned a few things. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Our next speaker is Sarah Kareem.
Good evening, school board members and MISD staff and students. Happy first week of school to all MISD staff and students, and thank you. Thank you for the time, energy, and care you poured into making sure our students feel safe, welcomed, and excited as they started school this past week. My name is Sarah Kareem, and I currently serve as president of the Mercer Island PTA Council, which serves as a resource for and connector between MIPA, PTA leaders, and our broader community partners at MI. I'm here tonight to express my deep appreciation for MISD staff and to offer a simple ask as we begin this school year. I'll start with a story that illustrates the power of collaboration and how MISD staff created a meaningful experience for our students. In May, I was invited by now City Council member Daniel Becker and then MIPA President Julie Day to attend a city-led open house in the Dean's Children's Park, what many of our children lovingly call Dragon Park. It's focused, the open house was focused on the largest single project in the new 15-year Parks Levy, a major playground update. That day, I met Shelby Perrault, the City Capital Parks Manager, whose amazing team shared their interactive planning visuals and worksheets with stickers to gather ideas from young voices. Thanks to the relationships built through my time with the Lake Ridge PTA and the PTA Council, I was able to immediately connect Shelby with some teachers, all 4 elementary school principals, and all elementary PTA presidents to see if more students could get involved. This is where the MISD staff shined. Within 12 hours of outreach, every single principal and teacher had responded. I want to specifically thank Lake Ridge teachers, Lucy Anderson and Elizabeth Holland, and Northwood, West Mercer, and Island Park principals, Julie Newcomer, Megan Isaacson, and Jody McCowan. Despite tight testing schedules and the demands of end-of-year logistics, these educators found time and creative ways to incorporate this project into their classrooms, connecting it to language arts, math, social studies, and art, and making it a true lesson in civic participation. Because of their responsiveness, the city made time-sensitive presentations to 54 classrooms. and gather feedback from over 1,200 students. In a July update, shall be shared that students offered thoughtful, sometimes surprising input, shaping a design that now better reflects what our children value in play, inclusion, and accessibility. This kind of collaboration between MISD staff, city leaders and staff, PTA, a community organization like Friends of Dragon Park, championed by long-term accessibility advocate John Hamer, who I believe is here today, is exactly what makes Mercer Island special. When we work together in service of all of our children, we create lasting impact. So here's my ask in the next 20 seconds. Let's do more of this, please. Let's continue fostering partnerships like the one informing this project, where MISD, as the city's largest anchor institution, continues to actively engage with community partners in ways that benefit our students' growth both in and beyond the classrooms. Thank you again to our incredible MISD staff for your community engagement, your responsiveness, it's a year full of collaboration, connection, and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Some impressive fast talking at the end. Our last speaker is John Hamer. John.
My name is John Hamer. I've lived on Mercer Island for 25 years. My wife, who's here tonight, and I have 4 grandchildren. 2 of them are at Northwood School, including Ford Parks, my grandson who's disabled. Some of you may know Ford. We are very pleased with the IEP program there, and so are his parents. And I want to thank you all for your service and it's a tough job, as I know, and maybe getting tougher, as you know better than I. I'm speaking today here because when I first learned of the case of Chris Twombly, it brought back memories of what happened to my sister when she was in junior high school. She was in 9th grade, I was in 7th grade. She was a cute, good student, cheerleader with lots of friends. But I later learned that she had been sexually abused by a respected, popular teacher. He kept her alone after a class, grabbed her hand and put it on his crotch. She told my parents, who told her never to be alone with him again. I'm not sure they reported it to the administration, but I know nothing happened to the teacher. I believe that incident affected her profoundly for the rest of her life. The following year, when she was a sophomore in high school, she withdrew, stopped studying, and lost friends. She began hanging out with a bad crowd, as my parents said. She became rebellious, dated some guys my parents didn't approve of. She made some bad decisions and had a troubled life. Was the incident with that teacher the root cause of her changes? I don't know, but I strongly suspect it may have been. I write a column in the Mercer Island Reporter, some of you may know, a couple times a month. And I wrote a column, I told this story in the print edition that came out yesterday. It's online as well. Some of you may have seen it. I hope you'll all read it, along with a really remarkably well-documented story that Andy Nystrom of the Reporter and Mo Clark of Investigate West ran on the front page of that paper August 13. The paper, to its credit, has also printed responses from Fred and other letters to the editor and op-eds from other concerned citizens. Some people have criticized this media coverage, arguing that the privacy of victims needs to be protected. I don't disagree with that protection, but the story could have been made public and reported in other ways. So this is a vitally important story, deserves thorough coverage. Our children deserve complete protection from predators. And as I wrote in my column, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Full disclosure is mandatory. Transparency, accountability, and openness must prevail. And I hope some good is yet to come out of this situation. Why? Because somewhere out there, my sister is listening. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone who spoke tonight. Michelle, we don't have any late additions. We typically take a short break after public input, so I'd like to propose we recess again until 6:30, and that gives people a chance if they're not going to stay to move themselves around and so forth. And everyone, you have to stretch again. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We will come back at 6:30.
We're gonna bring us back from recess. I'm taking over again from Eddie Tai, so we're tag teaming it tonight. Next up on our agenda is 2C board policy. Let's say
3, 4, C.
Oh my God. Well, any way you look at it, it's board policy 1800 OE1, fundamental 4, analytic critical thinking for global awareness. And we're back with Nova Williams, who's going to.
I'll refresh.
Okay, so in Fundamental 4, we have both, we have multiple data points. So we have the civic-minded graduate in here. We also have some of our EES data, and we have some demographic data in terms of the spread across certain classes. And so these are sort of couched in themes. This one is just civic-minded results. Again, we had that lower participation this year, 56.8 in terms of skills pertaining to empathy, 48% of listening abilities, 49.6 familiar with community involvement and how to do so, 38.4 feel responsibility to serve others, and then 44.8 are willing and able to discuss controversial issues respectfully. These fall under the leadership category of themes. 39.2, knowing about those community involvement opportunities and awareness of how to get to those things. 34.4% said that they've helped implement community initiatives. Little over 42% gained knowledge that would support them in their future profession. 48% confident in their community contribution. 35% planning to volunteer on a continual basis. Shifting to the EES, we had some here in terms of the global awareness. So there were several questions on there marked in the full report. 93% in terms of their comfort in engaging with peers from different cultures, race, ethnicity. And then collaborative problem solving, their willingness to partner and work together to solve problems, 62%, which was down a little bit from last year. And then civic-minded graduate has a piece in here too for political engagement, and 52%, which was significantly up from the prior year, are engaging in the political realm around them. Course enrollment data, so there are 2 here, civics, and then we have horticulture. The total numbers are right there with the titles, and then the breakdown based on gender. So we have male, female, and non-binary listed here. So a little bit toward the leaning toward male students in terms of civics. We had 111 seniors, 2 juniors, and 1 sophomore. In horticulture, about 41 students, and we had 20 male, 19 female, and 2 non-binary. And this one has a more, not equal spread across the grade levels. We have most sophomores and seniors taking that course with a handful, or excuse me, most freshmen and juniors taking it with a handful of sophomores and seniors.
Can I ask a question on this point real quick? Can you explain to, say, the lay board member how horticulture fits in to this, under this rubric? Like,
I wasn't a part of this
isn't that
development of this
plants?
report. It is, yeah, it's a course that they take.
I mean, it's
The
great.
history of
I'm
why
excited,
they
but-
chose horticulture.
I don't know when that was chosen by a board as a point to
Pre-existing.
measure. I don't recall when that happened.
Well, it's caring and tending for plants.
I thought it was interesting too.
Yeah.
I would bet, I don't really remember, but I would bet it's because it's set at crest.
Right.
So trying to identify just different differences and different alternative opportunities for learning.
Yeah, and fantastic chance to sort of shout out the CREST education that provides that alternative education to students who thrive in that environment.
Well, it's open to all students,
Well,
but
yeah.
yes, but it definitely attracts a higher number of crest students.
I'll take a stab. I mean, it seems that, I guess, we live on a planet, right? And so like ecosystems are global. So to the extent that horticulture sort of maps with ecosystems, that's the only explanation I can come up with.
Great.
Sorry, no, but
Yeah, no
we're
worries.
just like, what's going on?
No problem. And then in terms of civics, the breakdown here, there are obviously more students in the civics class, so it's more reasonable to show you those numbers. The spread across civics is fairly similar to horticulture, but with fewer students, of course, that are identified in that full report. And then if you go to that last one, that's just key trends kind of across the board as a whole and thinking about where we could move toward. So positive growth areas, we saw growth in emotional awareness, problem solving, community engagement and leadership, but thinking about areas of focus, and I think this came out in the last, was that peer respect piece of things that we talked about before. Collaborative learning is something that we can be better at, certainly. And then student voice and decision making. And that's all of them.
Sorry, I have some comments. I'm so sorry. I am.
Don't apologize.
Who goes into, I will say that I do like that in the report that you shared, that it is broken, like it is here, you have 4th and 5th grade, and then middle school and high school, but and what jumped to me here is I see the elementary students. There's some numbers that about the critical thinking that they're lower than I hope, but at the same time, I can see the curve going up after COVID. And this is kind of the last cohort of those students that were affected on the closure of the school that are measured here. And their peers that are in 6th and 7th grade, I can see how they recruit in middle school. So I think that the middle school kind of took a lot of effort kind of bringing those numbers up too. I will be interested to just keep seeing the numbers and the days between the 18 and 20 going forward a little bit to see how they recuperated in future years, if that curve keeps growing up or if we do not recuperate at all, especially in the elementary, to see if there's something that happened that it was just that cohort, that it's what.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to think about the cohort of kids that are in 4th and 5th grade now because those are the kiddos who were most impacted by the beginnings of school. So certainly we would anticipate seeing some differences there most likely over the next several years. Agreed.
However, I see middle school here that they were also in elementary during COVID, and I see it that changed. So middle school did help kind of taking out of that. So anyway, but it is represented the same in terms of how the numbers look through those years. So yes. And anybody, let me see if I saw. Then that was pretty much what I saw. So yeah.
Any other questions or comments on this?
Saying that
You're good. Do we have a motion to find the superintendent compliance with
I move that we find the superintendent compliance with board policy 1800-081 fundamental 4.
I second. Student?
Aye.
Board members?
Aye.
So 1040. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. So I'm looking for motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion to approve this consent agenda, students?
Aye.
Board members?
Aye.
1040. And then, superintendent report and announcements.
Just extremely grateful for all of the work that goes into starting the school year. The work that happens at home with our parents, getting their kids ready, our students, but certainly our staff. Preparations, as we know at this table, begin in January when we start putting together enrollment projections. We start putting together staffing projections, and then it flows from there. So a tremendous start to the year as I've been in the schools to see all of the different ways that we're welcoming kids in. I was speaking with our 2 board reps just quickly at the break, and reality sets in pretty quickly on day 2 after the first day, but just a lot of energy throughout our schools. So just publicly want to thank everyone for making that happen because it is about our students. So the other thing we've already mentioned.
Then we have legislative report. Christine and Deborah, do you have anything?
We'll be prepared next time to talk about stuff for the general assembly. The handbook came out. It's linked on here if anyone wants to look at it.
Excellent. We'll just rocketing right along. Maybe telling not us. Okay, go ahead, Deborah. Sorry, board reports.
Just echoing the sentiments, it's just wishing everyone a great school year. And, you know, it's, seems like it's our world right now that things are up and then things are challenging. And, you know, I just want to say, I just want to say to all the parents, my daughter was in first grade when Sandy Hook happened, and it was devastating. And I mean, they're all devastating, but as a parent, and I know that we're all hit hard and lots of emotions. And I saw a lot of posts yesterday from, you know, kind of the impacted age and people that are really hitting close to home. And you know, then also people talking about how you know, thoughts and prayers are, you know, move with your feet. Right, so act with your feet and do something, and whether it's gun control or mental health or all of the above, but also just giving grace to each other in this really challenging world, and doing our best to make sure that we do our part in making sure that everyone has a place in our community, because I think that for me is, other than, I don't know why we have guns, but that's just my personal view. But other than that, I think that's the most important thing that needs to happen is that people are treated with dignity and respect and supported when they're struggling. So yeah, that's kind of it. Just really hope for a safe and healthy school year for everybody.
Christine, before I go to you, I'm sorry, Lucy, did you have a student report?
Oh, actually, Brody went to a conference recently.
I did. It was a START conference through the National Student Board Member Association. And it was just a place where basically they brought a bunch of student representatives together, and we learned a little bit about what being a student board member looks like in different states, different districts, and basically ways that we as students can advocate for change and represent other students properly in our district. And it was inspiring to hear, and also a little sad to hear that there were some districts where students were there as their only student representative representing 20,000 people, or the only one at the state level representing like hundreds of thousands of students. And so it made me really grateful and glad for our district that Lucy and I get to represent about 2,000 students each. And I think that our small district feel really helps us represent the students as best we can. And I think it makes it easier for us.
Yeah, Ava and I had gone to this conference last year. And we thought it was like a kind of introductory thing. So hopefully we can continue to do it with our new junior reps, because it's a really great way to learn about what it's going to be like to be on the board.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot before. I would never forget it. Christina, do you have any board report?
Well, I first want to echo about the importance of everybody belonging, and want to also reassure that after going last year to the presentation that the high school did regarding on how school is prepared to be safe, I do trust that the district is ready and has what it needs to keep our kids safe. I would definitely don't want this tragedy to be repeated anywhere. And I also will say to everybody here and in the community that responsible gun ownership matters. So there's the Merced Island Police Department does have information about how to lock your guns if you have a gun in your house. And I know that there's a community here at every town in Merced Island that does promote and will inform the community regarding responsible gun ownership. I think that thinking that 20% of death in under 18 is due to a firearm, it's alarming. So it is also our responsibility to ensure that that matters. So because this touches everybody, we I appreciate your message yesterday and today music. It is a tragedy that should not be repeated, and we are still living it every year. So yeah. And also, when I jump back again on the topic that the community is talking about this opportunity that we have to reflect on ourselves and maybe do the superintendent committee on how to keep our explore to have a stronger system on prevention and intervention around what is abuse, neglect, and sexual misconduct in our district, and put it out to do something that we can make this system better and look for best practices to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And if it happens, we have the right interventions in place. So just gonna put it on the floor again to make this pretty much. That's it.
I'd also like to talk about safety tonight, and to that end, I have a prepared written statement. Let me begin by stating what should be obvious. We must do better for the safety of our students. They depend on us. After the initial shock of recent revelations, the community wants solutions. But without admitting and analyzing where things went wrong, our children will remain at risk. This is not about pointing fingers. This is about finding solutions. 4 years ago, when I ran for school board, I ran on transparency. It has guided my service ever since, because transparency underpins trust, and trust builds public confidence. Yet today we are confronted with the cost of broken trust. 3 weeks ago, Superintendent Rundle assured the public that Twombly's misconduct involved only one student. Yet, that very same student told police she knew of another victim. When Twombly was investigated, he asked legal counsel whether the allegations involved, quote, one victim or multiple victims, end quote, suggesting he already knew the answer. In February 2024, prosecutors concluded they could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Twombly engaged in sexual intercourse with the victim. Despite this, Superintendent Rundle approved an additional year of pay and pension benefits to avoid a potential legal fight with the union. In April 2024, prosecutors met to discuss community notification and to identify other potential victims. But the public was kept in the dark for another 16 months until days before the news broke. To this day, the district has not released its own internal investigation, unlike other districts, such as the Vancouver School District. Nor has leadership addressed systematic changes beyond reinforcing old training materials and reporting protocols that have already proven inadequate. And when asked earlier this week if there would be any changes in how situations of alleged misconduct are handled moving forward and how the public is notified, Superintendent Rundle's answer was simply, quote, hard to tell, end quote. That answer is not acceptable to me or the parents and wider community who elected me. Our students' safety cannot rest on hesitation or vague promises. Families deserve clear, measurable action. Here are the immediate next steps that the community is asking for. 1, host an open Q&A session to engage the community. 2, immediately release the district's July 28, 2024 internal investigation report. 3, adopt an interim notification rule requiring public notification in coordination with law enforcement within 72 hours of placing any individual on administrative leave for suspected sexual misconduct. The choice is clear. Superintendent Rundle and the board must adopt these changes within the next 30 days and establish a roadmap for ensuring the safety of our students, openly, on the record, with deadlines, or step aside. If they lack the will to listen to parents and implement systemic protections, It should not stand in the way of those who will. This is not about blame or personality conflicts. It is about accountability, truth, and protecting our children. We must do better for our children, for our community, for the future.
Okay, I'm just gonna remind us all that individual board reports are the, in some case, opinion of individual board members and it is not the will or reflection of the board as a whole. I think there's some disagreement on this subject, and obviously differences of nuance and opinion between board members on this subject. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to say anything else, I'll just do my board report. Okay, so the entire board turned up on Monday for Tech Day and served lunch to our staff and teachers, which was super fun. I have to say, it's one of the more fun days of being a board member. You get to see everybody after the summer, see how their summer's gone, see who obviously had a wonderful summer. And it was just a pleasure and a privilege. And I think that we all enjoyed it very much. It's great to see everybody back. It's great to be a little bit of service to the staff and teachers who serve us well, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And it was nice to see the entire board there. And then speaking of eating, I just want to shout out again and give thanks from the whole board for Steph Boyer and her team of volunteers who provide us with dinner. It has made such a material difference in our board meetings to have actual food to eat rather than like a cheese stick, a granola bar halfway through. It's really been a big quality of life adjustment for us all. So I just want to acknowledge that that's happening again this year and to really appreciate how much we appreciate it as a board. Yes, I just said this is an individual board report, but now I just spoke for the behalf of the board, so sorry. But speaking as me, I thank everybody. And I think that is it. Yeah.
My silence here today to Director Glowitz's comments is in no way an agreement. I think it's very dangerous to come across as the be-all, end-all, know-it-all of everything right and transparency when there's a board that was informed all along. The implication that the things that people are suggesting online, that anyone can do ChatGPT search for the best way to handle it, frankly, we're all done. So I bring up, go to the AG's office, go to OSPI, ask for an independent investigation. I welcome it. And could not be prouder of the work that was done, the priorities that were determined in a lose-lose situation. The implication that our staff, who are all mandatory reporters, would hide something like this to protect a predator is appalling and disrespectful and without basis. So if you have allegations to make them specifically and not these general, I heard this, because it's offensive. And it's a lie. There was no allegation of sexual intercourse, which you know because you were the one who disclosed it and violated the executive meetings.
Not true.
Yes, it is.
Not true.
Okay. So we all know it was because we know the people that came forward.
You're getting close to defamation, Deborah.
Yeah, right. Right.
I would watch
Okay.
yourself.
Bring it, and we'll let it be known. So you had your opportunity to speak. You presented tremendous misinformation. It is, I appreciate John Hamer's statements about transparency and disclosure and the fact that the media needs to report. They need to report facts as facts, and they didn't. And that article, the reason people have an issue with that article is this claim of confidentiality with regards to the victim. They reached out to her and asked her for comment. So this claim that her identity was protected is a lie. They all know, as do you.
I do not.
Who it was.
I do not.
So let's stop with the lies. There is sunlight on it. The investigation by the district and law enforcement and outside counsel was thorough and appropriate, and students' safety was protected at all points in time. Find your political aspirations somewhere else. If it actually is about safety, you wouldn't be making these broad statements at a board meeting. You would be doing something about it. I'm sorry for my tone. Lucy?
I think I just want to say, I think political fighting about this doesn't really make anyone safer.
It's not political.
I think the fighting, politicizing this or making it something, I think what we need to do as a district is protect the victim. And that's what our district did in this scenario, and that was what was right. For many students coming out with their story is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and having their wishes respected is the thing we must do. I really respect our district. I mean, recently, for people to know, in all of the classrooms, at least in the high school that I know, if there's see something, say something posters. We're encouraged to anonymously report things if we wish. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And so I think respecting the wishes of that victim to remain confidential was a really noble and incredible thing for our district to do.
Christine, did you want
I just want to say that this is not an easy situation for any of us, for the district or the community. This also hurt everybody of us. And I think that this is why we need to just ensure that we improve our practices to ensure that this doesn't happen again and how we're going to be period. And I think that is the way that we should move forward and be together in this, so we can make the system better. We can start the year in a way that every student feels that we have their back and we will protect. And if you know something, regardless if you are part of the community, if you've heard it in your house and for years or not, if you know something, say something. You have to bring the accusation of the person that you know forward, so there could be an investigation. Rumors and speculations do not help on investigations. It doesn't improve our district. So especially this is for the adult. If you know something, say something. We are the ones who have to protect our children. And this is the way that we should start the year. We will make this better, and we will ensure that we will ensure, and I'm sure that the teachers, and I see some teachers in the back, that they're the same way appalled about this situation, and they will make their effort and improve the system so that this doesn't happen.
You can't make recommendations on how to do better until you find out what steps were taken.
So what's about restart internal investigation,
Okay.
like other districts?
All right, I'm gonna stop this back and forth because I think that it's not. I'm gonna stop this back and forth. I'm gonna stop this back and forth because I think that it's not productive. I think that this is obviously a topic that is very sensitive in our community. And very sensitive, as we saw tonight, even with adults who are affected, some many decades later by events that have happened in their high school and college years. So I just want to reiterate that I support the actions the district has taken during this. I think that it's very likely that, calls are made. And I think that given the information that we had and the priorities that the victim asked us to maintain, we might make the same call again as a board, but it's very easy to second guess these things or to look at them from the outside without complete information. And I think that what we're missing in this is that, as our student representative said, what is making our students feel safer? Is it to know that if they come forward and it's politically expedited, or that it's something that the adults want to seize on to try to score points that they're going to just talk about it nonstop, or do they want to know that their complaints or that their reporting will be handled in a confidential way that will make them feel safe and make them feel they are heard without being taken advantage of? And that is something that is my number one priority with our students, is that they feel safe in their schools, that they feel safe in their community, and that they have people that they can talk to and feel like their concerns and their fears are being addressed. And I'm not sure that we're doing that at this current moment with the public conversation that we're having, not about this important topic and not about student safety. That is very important, but some of it which has bled over into political or other agendas being serviced in the call of this tragedy. So anyway, I'm going to give myself the last word on that. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Okay, and student?
Aye.
Board members?
Aye.
1040. Thank you very much, everyone.
Watch yourself, Evan.
Bring it, Dan. As I have learned.
That was actually a